In this video, I'm just going to go over a couple of ways to add a bit of security to our database. What I'm going to do is create a database from scratch just to give you an example. So I've created a page called data entry. So as you can see from this website, I've added loads of other things, but we're just going to focus on data entry now, and I'm going to create a new database for this page. So I'm going to navigate to Dataflex link. I'm going to add a new database quickly. There's all other ones that I've added. Don't worry about those for the moment. So I'm just going to add a basic database, basic DB database, permission to search. I'll add a link to what this means below in the description. There may even be one that appears up there. I'll leave that for the moment, and I'll leave that. Again, we'll do a different video on that, which I will add to this description. So I'm just going to create this basic database, and I'll just grab the shortcode for it, copy, we'll edit this page, and we'll add a shortcode plus search for short code, and paste that in there, and update. We've got no fields right now on our database, so I'll just show you what that looks like. These are just mandatory fields that are added. I'll just show you what they mean. So we'll go back to our database. We'll hide all the settings. So we've got these two fields here, Google reCAPTCHA. In another video, again, I will go through that in more detail. I'll put a link in the description for that, and maybe one will appear at the top here as well. So I'm just going to remove that for the moment. It's a mandatory field, so it can't actually be deleted, but it can be disabled, so we're disabling it. And right now we have entry owner enabled, which is the way we advise to have it. If we try and delete it, we'll see that there is a dependency on it, and we can't delete it for the moment. And that dependency is that in access control, managing items are private. I'll just quickly show you that. So in our database settings, the last item is access control. So if we look at access control and we look at managing items, which is here, managing items means editing or archiving stroke deleting items from our database. It means that in order to do that, we need a private connection. I'm going to set that to loose for the moment, and we'll save these settings, and we'll just come down here and we should be able to remove this. There you go, so that is disabled as well right now. And on here we'll just see the submit and reset buttons. So what we need to do is we're just going to add a field to our database, just a text field. This is a text field. We'll just not want to say that's required at the moment, and that will appear in our database. Okay, so that's a text field. Right now we've got this as disabled. Now I would recommend highly against this, so I'm going to I just wanted to prove that you could disable it if you want to, but I'm going to suggest that you don't do that. So we're going to click the pencil, and we're going to tick it so it's back in our database. And if we look at the data entry field, we'll see that it appears. So, and it's mandatory. I'm going to add some text to this field. This is some test text, and I'm going to add an email of test@test.com. This test@test.com is what I have been using as my own email address to identify that I am the owner of the items that I am adding to the database. So I'm going to submit that, and that item has now been successfully added to the database. So I'm going to create a quick search on this database now. So we'll go to Add New under Dataflex Link and get started, and we're going to create search DB, and we'll click search, and we're going to search on our basic database. Results. I'm just going to quickly rush through this. This item, minimum score, I go through in another video. I'll put a link to that in the description, and a link to allow an unfiltered search in the description as well. So right now we're not going to bother about those. We'll create the search on. So if we have a look at our access control, it says that the form will load, we can add items, and we can search on items publicly. So I'm going to save that. I'll go down here and we'll add this field, which is from our main database, and we're going to search on this, and we're going to say search. This editable field shouldn't show up. I imagine in a future release it won't do. I believe it won't show up if we refresh the page. Anyway, let's just try that. There we go. It's not there. So I'm just gonna add. And we'll say that exactly the same. Weighting we go through in another tutorial, which I will add a link to as well. And thesaurus, again, we go through that in another tutorial, and I will add a link to that. And I do add a video on restrict as well. So this is just very basic. Right, so if we go to our data entry, we see that we added some test text. Let's create another page. New page. I'm going to quickly rush through this. This is just going to be a page for our search. Okay, so let's view this page, and we can see that we can now search this page. So what we're going to do is remove the reCAPTCHA as we have done before. Let's search for text, and test@test.com is the email we're using to identify ourselves. There we go, and this is some test text. Clearly the security around that is pretty loose, because if we know the email address, then we can find this search. So what I'm going to do is show you how to lock down the search and the database. So we'll go back into the database and the search. Let's start off with the database itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say that adding items to our database is a private thing to do. So let's click private and we'll save our settings. Now what happens when we load our basic database, which we've got under data entry here, we should be prompted to connect, create a secure connection to the database. And there we go. We are told to unlock a padlock. So what actually happens is when we fill in our email address to here, we will get sent an email. Well, what will happen first is a padlock will be created, and then we will be sent an email with a code to unlock that padlock. So unless you have access to that email address, you won't be able to receive the unlock code for the padlock. So right now I have access to test@test.com, and I'm going to send myself an email so I can create the padlock and get the code for it. So as we see, a padlock code, padlock is being created called GPYA. So we will have received an email, and it will say that the padlock code for GPYA is such and such. So I'm going to grab that email, and I'll show it to you. This is an email on my, I've got a local server. If you're interested, Papercut SMTP is a really good way of testing apps. And here we go, this is the email we get. It says the code is for this padlock, and this is the code itself. So I'm going to paste that in there, and we'll connect. And now what we have is we don't have to add test@test.com anymore, because if we click on controls, we'll see we're connected as test@test.com. And if we add a field, so another entry of text, and submit, and we go to our search page, we are also connected as test@test.com, and if we search for text, we will see that we get the two items. If we disconnect here, and we reset, and what we're going to do is quickly search on this and see what results we get. We have stipulated that adding items in our source database is intended to be secure, and we have to have that connection. But on our own email address, we can see that it's not as secure as we want it to be. So now we can. There's two ways of changing that. So if we go to this, this is our source database, I believe. Yes, this is our source database, and what we can do to restrict permission, so you have to be connected, is to say, go down to access control and say that viewing items in the database, it has to be secure. So if we save that, and now we try and search on that database, text and test@test.com, we should get a permission error. There we go, so permission is denied because we can't view it. So also on this page we can't connect, there's no way of connecting. So the way to deal with that is to go to our search which appears under all databases. Search our database is here, and that's the search. That searches basic database. And we'll click edit. And what we need to do here is we need to change the access control, and we can use any of these three items to protect the form and require a connection. I'm just going to do the item search to private, and we'll save that. And we'll now go back to search our database and refresh. And there we go, we must create a padlock code. We don't have access to. We'll just create a new padlock again and get a new padlock code. So our email address is test@test.com. Remember, we must have access to this email address to be able to get the code. So I'll get that. And here is, so we're not using GPYA at the moment, so what happens if we use GPYA, the code, by accident? We get told it's an incorrect code, and we have 3 attempts, and it reminds us that the padlock is GWHR. So let's get the one for GWHR. This is the code. We'll copy that and we'll paste this in here, and now we should be able to connect. And there we go. So if we just type in text, we now have permission to search. I hope that helps a little bit with understanding a bit more about security on databases and searches.